Newt Gingrich goes on and argues why Trump is going to resonate more with the average Republican voter.
This may seem like an odd comment, but I think that he's very, very smart. He clearly did very well.
Oh, pause it. I should say this is Newt Gingrich on with Laura Ingraham, who may not be around for much longer, but who knows?
Oh, yeah.
And Gingrich is talking about DeSantis right now. He's very, very smart. Now, we should be clear. Newt Gingrich is a dumb person's idea of what a smart person sounds like. So that would make DeSantis a smart person whom a dumb person who is a smart who a dumb person's smart person thinks is smart.
This may seem like an odd comment, but I think that he's very, very smart. He clearly did very well at Yale. He is clearly capable of thinking about big ideas. But, you know, Ronald Reagan was probably equally smart, but he also understood that he had to communicate so that everyday folks understood it. One of Trump's great advantages is he talks at a level where third, fourth, and fifth grade educations can say, oh yeah, I get that, I understand it. And in fact, Trump has now made the Republican Party the party of working Americans in a way that probably hasn't been true for almost 100 years.
Well, now, that last part may be the case. I wouldn't say that they're the party of working Americans, but maybe more so than they have been in the past 100 years. But this tells me two things. One, it tells me that the Ron DeSanctimonious line is going to be deployed quite a bit, because that's what Gingrich is saying here.
You guys
and you
were
notice
right.
how Gingrich dropped in that he went to Yale, right? In conversation, not attacking.
And how Ingram
him.
received it, like,
Yeah. This also tells me that Gingrich is on the Trump campaign payroll.
100%.
Because there's nothing that Gingrich won't do for a dollar. And in some ways, like, this is in the absence of the idea that it's obvious that DeSantis is going to win. Like, if it was obvious that DeSantis could beat Trump, you would see a shift in the Republican Party as to who would be working for him and what they would perceive their ultimate payment. In the absence of that, because it's anything but clear that DeSantis can beat Trump. He may be competitive. He may be able to get 20% of the vote or 30% of the vote. I doubt that in the Republican Party, but maybe. But then Trump's money becomes just, that's the way these guys operate.
Yeah.
And it's interesting now, sorry, Emma, but like,
no, it's okay.
The way that, like, you'll see the National Review guys or the Daily Wire try to make that shift happen, like get out ahead of it and force the DeSantis momentum. Like, actually, like, people will talk about the technical difficulties, but if you listen to him, it's 75 minutes of strong policy. It's like, you're pretending, but you're like trying to make it happen. And it's funny to see who's trying to force it.
They are so desperate to make him, and I've said this a lot, but Trump without the baggage. And when he puts that little Yale dig in there, that's not a compliment. That's a dig. That's a way for him to say he's out of touch with the regular voter. He's an elitist. Like,
he's the swamp. That's where they'll go.
Yes, they all went to Ivy League schools. They all went. I mean, but they only deploy that. They like to hide that largely.
Yeah.
Ted Cruz went to Princeton or whatever, but he pretends he's a man of the people. They hide that kind of stuff and only deploy it when they want the audience to be like, well, is he talking down to me?
And the way that this is going to go is they're going to try and establish DeSantis as being, talking down to people. They're going to use these and there's every reason to believe the guy is, like, personally, like, not good with people. And this puts that pressure. I mean, this is how it works. Like, if you look at, like for instance, it was the reason why immigration got so much attention during the Trump years was because the narrative was very easy to set that Trump hates immigrants amongst other, the marginal people in our society. And it was very easy to set that narrative. And then every time that he did something with immigrants, everything got an intense scrutiny. Joe Biden, you see, does not have certainly does not have the same set of policies that Trump has, but he does have some that are similar. You know, the idea that you've got 1 million people applying on that app and they're not able to come. The idea that we've had 2 people in Border Patrol custody die in the course of like 2 months.
A young girl last week.
Who was denied care for 24 hours. That did not become a big story. And the reason why it didn't become a big story is because that narrative about Biden being anti-immigrant has not held. The story's the same. It's just as reprehensible. There needs to be reform we need to get rid of ICE on some level. But it doesn't get the attention because the narrative's not there. And so what Trump is doing is he's zeroing in on DeSantis's personal flaws that make it easier to build this narrative because reporters are going to see it on a personal level. You're going to get images of DeSantis walking into a place in New Hampshire and his my name's Peter. Okay. And then it doesn't even introduce himself to these guys. And
Trump getting worshipped, handing out burgers and sodas.
And exactly, East Palestine McDonald's thing. I mean, that's a big part of it. So
yeah, you can't will him being actually connecting to people into existence, even though they're trying.
It's a very funny, a very true observation, I think, though, because when we think of like Sam and the reaction he gets, say, talking to Tim Pool, it'd be nice if you went viral for the Social Security stuff or whatever, but it's for those moments of in libertarian debates where you ask them a question that they can't answer, that anybody without even background understands.
Right.
And that's why DeSantis, he's only speaking to people who are already primed and on 7 different Republican group chats and stuff.
Yeah.
The wokeness thing. But this is what Trump does, right? This is what Trump did, and that was his strategy. And the idea that DeSantis is following right in those tracks. He's literally, imagine, Donald Trump walking across a, snow-covered field. I don't know. But DeSantis is trying to fit right in his shoe steps, right behind him. And Trump's also going to deploy that.
Yes.
And he did in that ad that we showed.
He's copycat. He's copying me.
The only difference he has is that he is the only difference is he talks down to people. He doesn't really care about you.
Yeah.
And I do.
When's the last time you guys heard that Trump went to Penn? Went to an Ivy League school, right? When's the last time?
Him bringing it up and saying that's how smart I was.
I was smart, but that's the general election.
But the point is that doesn't get brought up because that's not a part of the pre-existing narrative about Trump. It's that he talks like an everyman, right? And he can relate to you. And it doesn't matter that he might even have a more elite background than DeSantis. It's about perception.
And the fascinating thing, too, about the general election, and again, I will not make a prediction maybe about elections ever again on some level, but certainly not about Trump in a general election. But DeSantis is making Trump more radical in some respects. And Trump has made DeSantis more radical. I don't think he cares. I think he seems to be doing this with a big smile on his face. I think he enjoys this stuff. But hopefully, the American public, it's going to make it that much harder for them to deal in the general. But we'll see.